This is a debate on clauses 6 to 20 and the schedule.
Mr. Chair.
I call the Honourable Minister Stephen Joyce.
I just did. Quietly. Mr. Chair.
I heard him.
Mr. Chair. I hear a quacking of a duck. Mr. Chair, I'm very pleased to take a call on this bill, and I'd like to make a couple of comments at this point if I could. One is I'd want to thank the Select Committee for their sterling work in relation to this bill. They've dealt with it very promptly, which is great because I think this is a crucially important initiative for New Zealand, and getting it underway as quickly as possible is something that we should, as a House, be proud to do, and therefore for those that have been supportive, I appreciate that support. The main purpose of the bill, of course, is to establish this new Crown entity, and this is the meat of the bill in terms of the clauses that take us through the structure of the Crown entity and what it does. But I suppose more formally what it does is a very simple thing to help get New Zealand's best ideas out of the lab and into the marketplace more quickly, to get New Zealand firms and New Zealand science and innovation working much more closely together than has been achieved in this country to date. And I would say, Mr. Chair, that we have some marvellous examples of innovation in this country, and it's a privilege for me to get the opportunity to see so many of those wonderful examples of innovation around the country. And there's plenty of companies that are doing very well, but there's plenty of companies that would do better if they had a better understanding of how they could work with what is a very complicated innovation sector that this country has built up over many, many years, and to have that opportunity to work more easily with it. And that's the role of Callaghan Innovation, a high-tech HQ to support our innovative businesses, primarily in the manufacturing and services sectors, in particular high-value manufacturing and services, which means I must say I'm a bit confused as to why the Greens are opposing it. It seems strange. They talk about high-value manufacturing, they talk about clean tech, and then here we have this magnificent initiative which is reasonably broadly supported around the Parliament, and yet suddenly they've pulled out yet again and said, oh no, that's not for us. So one has to wonder, it's a little bit like the Hobbits. We know the Hobbits is a weightless export. One has to wonder why they oppose that as well. There's been a couple of questions raised in the previous part about the management of appropriations and how the appropriations should be set. And the reality is, of course, that the appropriations are set by the Executive once the bill is passed, and of course reviewed by this House at Select Committee, and the opportunities that are presented by the financial reviews. So that's the opportunity that comes in that regard. But there is some interest, and I acknowledge the member from New Zealand First, there is some interest in terms of exactly where Callaghan Innovation lands in terms of the make or buy argument. And that's going to be very carefully, and it is being very carefully worked through. And everybody's very cognisant of the issues. On the one hand, you have research organisations slightly nervous about how it might impinge upon their particular area of expertise. And then on the other hand, you also have people who I think quite rightly point out that it has to do significant things itself to have skin in the game in terms of its involvement in the research and science sector. So it is going to be a reasonably fine line to draw, and I suspect that it will evolve over a series of years rather than be day one, here's the final forever allocation of what the organisation does itself and what it purchases or more importantly directs firms to in other providers. But it is definitely the purpose of the exercise not to unnecessarily duplicate what already occurs. And I think that's a very important aspect of it. I see it as, for example, somebody who's a company that comes in and says, look, we really do need some specialist, for example, applied mathematics expertise. I would see Callaghan Innovation very quickly directing that person, wanting to see them build that relationship wherever that person works in the innovation system in New Zealand that can help that business and be successful. So it has, of course, evolved across a range of industries in that high-value space. The food and beverage manufacturing area, agricultural technologies, digital technologies, health technologies, therapeutics, and also on the high-value wood products. And it's going to have very good relationships. So take high-value wood, for example, with the Scion Institute as well. So these are important things that the Callaghan Innovation will be doing. I also want to, before I stop, Mr Chair, acknowledge the family of Sir Paul Callaghan for their support of the use of his name. We take that very seriously, and there's a lot of discussion going on how best to embody Sir Paul's approach to science and innovation in the organisation. That's very much front and centre. Thank you, Mr Chair.
I call the honourable member Grant Robertson.